Good morning. Welcome to First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston, a congregation that welcomes you and extends a heartfelt and inclusive invitation to join us in meaningful worship and in service to the world. We greet each of you, those here with us in person and those who are joining online via our live stream. Out of an abundance of caution, Reverend Scott, who was exposed to COVID, has asked Kai Flannery to fill in this morning. She lives in Austin, where she supports Wildflower Unitarian Universalist Church. She studied chaplaincy at Harvard Divinity School and has been a chaplain at Hospice Austin and at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. It has been decided to put our congregational singing on a brief hiatus because of the recent viral surge. We are, however, delighted to welcome our new music director, Dr. Jolie Rock. Please sit back, center yourselves, and enjoy our service this morning.
To love is to surrender. Loving is forgetting the self and seeking happiness for the other. How beautiful it is to live in order to love, to have in order to give.
Good morning, friends. Good morning. So good to be with you all, to hear your voices and see your faces. Like 45% of your faces. This is great. This morning, I heard from someone, I said, oh, it's so nice to be back, and I'm glad Reverend Scott is doing okay and resting. And she said, yes, I love this place. She said, it's a place of good people where people are good to you even on a bad day. So that's you. So thanks. Our responsive reading this morning comes from our gray hymnal. It's number 602 and is written originally by Lao Tse. And we will read it responsively. I will start, and Dr. Jolie will read the second line with you all. If there is to be peace in the world, there must be peace in the nations. If there is to be peace in the nations, there must be peace in the cities. If there is to be peace in the cities, there must be peace between neighbors. If there is to be peace between neighbors, there must be peace in the home. If there is to be peace in the home, there must be peace in the heart.
Celebremos compartiendo nuestras vidas, entendiendo esta
Here? Ooh, okay, there we go. I also, particularly this morning, have the pleasure of officially welcoming Dr. Jolie Rock to be our acting director of music and to give you a little more introduction to her. If I went through the whole thing, we would be here quite a while because Dr. Rock has a ridiculously impressive CV, and so the short version is that Dr. Rock has been both educating others and herself forever in her life. She has been involved in teaching at all levels from preschool up through college. She has more recently, been instructor at Prairie View A&M and also at Texas Southern, and currently she teaches at San Jacinto College. She also does gazillions of vocal workshops and trainings of all kinds of sorts of master classes, and of course has a brilliant performing life, has sung with Houston Ebony Opera and Guild and several other operatic performances in town, which are too much to name. And fortunately for us, she sings for us now sometimes, and it is such a blessing. Including in her singing, she also has been directing several choirs, some of which, or at least one of which, sang exclusively in Spanish, which is a terrific blessing for us as well as we extend our ministry in that direction. And also, I think my favorite title of things that she has published, writings that she has published, was an article called Racial Justice Ministry Through Music, published in the Worship Music and Ministry Journal. So I believe that it is self-evident that Dr. Rock is such a perfect fit to be here with us, and we are so thankful to have her. So I hope you will join me in giving her a very warm welcome. The last service I did mention that ordinarily, if we were not all in masks, we would have had a proper festival celebration, and we can't do that right now, but it's going to happen eventually. Once we are able to eat and drink and gather together, then we'll have a proper celebration.
Thank you all so very much. It's such an honor and a pleasure to be here, and I really look forward to digging into my work here in this community. And so I offer you this song written by David Frazier, I Need You to Survive.
us to continue on that spirit of prayer, come into our time of pausing and lifting up our hearts, our breath, our concerns, our joys. I invite you to join me in the spirit of that thing which some call meditation, you may call prayer, to invite yourself to just be comfortable in this moment, to relax. Take one deep breath, and then another. I invite you to open your mind, open your heart. God of many names and mystery beyond all of our naming. This time we have together during the week is precious. We take a breath together. We see faces we love. We bring this heart, this body, and what it carries into connection. Also coming together in a service, either at home or in person, we acknowledge that we have needs. So it is courageous for us to come to church. As so many are in danger and peril, we might live with fear or sorrow at this time. We also acknowledge so much is in bloom. So much is in bud, so much is waiting to happen. We pray for safety and also for audacity in the right measure. We pray for those we love and those we don't know. We hold in our hearts the world we wish for and the world we live in. We ask and hope for the courage and vulnerability to continue to show up together. We pray this morning in the names of all those known and unknown, present and absent, remembered and forgotten. We pray in the name of helpers of humankind. Amen. We come now into our time to lift up that which sits heavy on our hearts or that which lightens our hearts, our time of joys and sorrows. First, I just want to mention that the Vietnamese Zen community has lost a venerable leader. All the entire Buddhist community in the world, Thich Nhat Hanh, this week. So we hold his spirit and his heart and his community in our hearts this morning. And somebody had written in the book that his death lessens us all. And I do feel his loss this morning. And also, gosh, his teachings have made us different humans, I feel, than we were 30 years ago. I also see a joy written in the book for Reverend Leonora Montgomery on the occasion of her 99th birthday tomorrow. So we celebrate that, and there is a big picture, yay. There's a big poster out there that you can sign that somebody will be bringing by her house if you would like to do that. And so I'd like to also invite you this morning, as is a practice in this congregation, to say a name or bring to mind somebody that you would like to be held by this community this morning. Even if you don't know their names, even if we don't know their names, we will hold them in our hearts with you. Thank you, friends. In this great cloud of witnesses and memory in this beloved community, we hear these names. We hold them in our hearts. We hold you in our hearts. And let us remember also the suffering and joy in our community that we do not know, that is unspoken this morning. So we pause in awe and wonder of the beauty and diversity and mystery that is this life, in the spirit of love, in the spirit of hope, in the spirit of compassion. I invite you to enter into a time of silent prayer or meditation or reflection.
Each week, our morning offering is shared with an organization that shares our Unitarian Universalist values and through which we may live out our principles in the world. Today, we are honored and thrilled to welcome Cherry Steinwender, founder and CEO of the Center for Healing Racism.
Good morning. I want to acknowledge, first and foremost, I've been at this mic before, many times. Not only have I been in front of this mic, for those of you that is relatively new to First Universal Church, the Center for the Healing of Racism had its first office upstairs on the second floor. We were housed by you for 2 years. We had meetings and workshops called Dialogue Racism in Channing Hall, as well as in the big room. The Center for the Healing of Racism also gave the Unitarian Church an Ally Award. It was a plaque that we give once a year to individuals or organizations that support the mission of the center. To paraphrase, there are 3 important things about the work that the center is involved in. Number 1, educating people around racism. Number 2, aiding in the healing the damage that have done to all of us around racism. And I love to say all the time that it really doesn't matter how white your skin is or shades of brown. We've all been damaged around racism. And as we aid people to take that journey inward, to be able to find those spaces in the hearts, to be able to look at that damage, and to be able to speak it in an arena that's safe and loving. The work of the center is not about guilt and shame. It's really about healing. It's no way in the world we can invite people in with our name, healing racism, further traumatize them under that name. It just wouldn't work. The programs that we have been able to do, we have been in many Unitarian churches, not just here in the city. But at this church, because of the work that we started doing with young children, called Opening the Bread Basket, on several Sunday mornings, I conducted Opening the Bread Basket, where bread is brought in from cultures all over the world, and children have an opportunity to not only taste those breads, but to know about long histories of those breads. We have been in 45 states already, 2 countries, bringing this healing message and called Dialogue Racism. I want to say from the bottom of my heart, we have a long history. And I want you to know how grateful I am. The other members of the center, as well as its board of directors, that you still find it in your heart, support the work. It is so needed. And with that said, the song that was sung this morning, I won't hurt you with words from my mouth because I love you and I need you to survive. That's on one of the flash drives in my car, so I hear it all the time. And with that said, I really want to thank you.
Those of you in our sanctuary will find the instructions for text giving in the order of service, and those watching the live stream will see the instructions on your screen. Our regular Sunday morning offering collection invites us to weave a tapestry of love and action. We ask you to give generously. An offering will now be gratefully received.
To the work of this church, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives and these our offerings. Thank you, friends. Thank you, Miss Cherry. Our reading this morning, our first reading, comes from the United Nations Environmental Sabbath Service from several years ago. We who have lost our sense and our senses, our touch, our smell, our vision of who we are, we who frantically force and press all things without rest for body or spirit, hurting our earth, injuring ourselves, we call a halt. We want to rest. We need to rest and allow the earth to rest. We need to reflect and rediscover the mystery that lives within us, that is the ground of every unique expression of life, the source of the fascination that calls all things to communion. We declare a Sabbath, a space of quiet, for simply being and letting be, for recovering the great forgotten truths, for learning how to live again.
Our second reading this morning is by Thich Nhat Hanh. If you are a poet, you will see clearly that there is a cloud floating in the sheet of paper. Without a cloud, there will be no water. Without water, the trees cannot grow. And without trees, you cannot make paper. So the cloud is in here. The existence of this page is dependent on the existence of cloud. Paper and cloud are so close. This is interbeing.
We are not our own. Earth forms us. Human leaves on nature's growing vine. Fruit of many generations. Seeds of life divine. We are not alone. Earth names us, past and present, peoples near and far, family and friends and strangers. Show us who we are. Therefore let us make thanksgiving, and with justice willing and aware, give to earth and all things living liturgies of care. Let us be a house of welcome, living stone upholding living stone, gladly showing all our neighbors we are not our own.
I love that song, and thank you for doing such a beautiful job of it. And I love it because it reminds us as I embarked this morning to talk a bit about self-care and spiritual practice, that we are not just ours, that when we care for ourselves, we're caring for community too. So it is January, we are entering this new year. For some of us, a time of reframing or a time of resolution, a time of letting go, maybe taking up something closer to the life that we want to live, or so helping the world to be something closer to the world we want to see. I got some good advice. A bird told me that if I was going to ask you to speak back to me at any point, I should warn you. So later on in the sermon, I'm going to ask if you want to share a spiritual practice, if you want to say that out loud. So if something springs to mind, I will invite you into that. But just in case you're somebody who likes to start thinking early. So I don't know if you've seen a list this season of the computer-generated resolutions. There is a woman named Janelle Shane who works with, as she calls them, algorithms which we call artificial intelligence. Her title this year is going to be Futurist in Residence at the Smithsonian. Pretty good title. And she uses computer modeling and feeds in internet text, food blogs, social media, and even spam as her data. And she asked the algorithms to suggest positive changes for the future. And some of them were very practical and poetic, like every time a bird flies past me, I will remember to breathe. Some of them were more whimsical. On the day of the first snow, I will paint a canvas red. And then there were some that defy category, such as act like a cabbage for a month, or jump in front of a moving tree. So yeah, if you want to see more of these really incredible computer-generated resolutions, I invite you to her blog, which is called AI Weirdness. So I do a silent meditation retreat when I can over New Year's. And so this year we were there in reduced numbers, everybody in masks in a big hall in central Massachusetts. And so yeah, I did a lot of thinking in those silent days about spiritual practice. And it struck me that it was sort of like giving the right amount of care to a plant. Like you don't want to overwater your succulent, and you don't want to put your basil out right in the direct sun without the water it needs. And I don't know, maybe you're not even a fan of the word spiritual. But I like it, and I think I like it because it's vague. I like it because it covers a lot of bases. And for me, I've been thinking about what is spirit, and I guess today, for me, I would say the spirit is the part of us which is curious, which offers goodwill, which knows truth when we hear it, the part of us that loves beauty even if it's painful. As a chaplain, I feel like that's part of why in times of illness or even death, we can experience those times as spiritual, because we might be having both great love and great grief together at once, and we're unwilling to let go of either one in that moment. So I'm curious about people's spiritual practices. Would anybody like to share anything that they consider a spiritual practice from your current life, or something that you are taking up or wanting to take up? Walking? Cleaning the house. Yes, indeed. It can be, and then it can be aspirational. It can be an aspirational spiritual practice for me sometimes. But yeah, it can be when we really sink into it. Others? Checking in on friends and loved ones, absolutely. Yeah, that cycle of care. Yeah. Doing Tai Chi. Oh, beautiful. Both physical and a mental practice, both at once. Yoga. Yeah. I feel like the first time that I truly experienced my body as a body was in yoga. Just that attention. Yeah. Any others? Prayer 5 times a day. Yes. Yes.
You said the word attention.
Mm-hmm.
Attention and silence at the same time.
Ooh, attention and silence at the same time. Yep. That can be really hard. Sometimes there's a lot resting in that silence, a lot of busy mind. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyone else want to? Oh my gosh, that's lovely. My friend Christine does dishes as a meditative practice also. So Bob Shively, a former minister here. That's lovely. Yes, you're making things clean and setting them aside in a very orderly way, and you're serving people. I saw a little sticker on the fridge this morning that said, "Love people and feed them." I think, yeah, yeah. So I'm loving these. I feel like spiritual practice can be a simple and regular practice, which connects us to what's around us and what's inside of us. And maybe that's energy or people or senses or God. It could be productive, like cutting an apple, cleaning the house, baking a loaf of bread, making a bed, sweeping the floor, painting. But our focus is on noticing, enjoying, and care. I offered a workshop on everyday ritual once with a mom who was also a healthcare worker, and she mentioned the time before bed with her kids, where she was usually, everything was hectic. She was trying to wrangle them and get them ready for the next day, just trying to make sure everybody had what they needed, that nobody didn't brush their teeth and wake up with a stinky mouth. And she said, I just want to treat that time more intentionally each day. I want that day to be a special time together. So it doesn't even have to be a change in what we do, but it can be a change in our orientation to the time that we already spend with each other. A spiritual practice, as we know, could also be purposefully non-productive. A mandala made of sand which blows away in the wind, or sitting, or singing, or chanting, or yoga. Just these practices of being with our body and our mind. Simply. So spiritual practice can hold us on the days when things are simple, and they can also hold us on the days when things are harder. If we think about folks who may be drawn into fundamentalism, that can be because we don't feel our spiritual grounding is there when something hard happens. We don't know what's holding us, and we need to go looking for a structure right now. Sometimes people will say, and sometimes this will come up in a conversion type conversation, maybe you've heard it before, but some people will say that humans have a God-shaped hole in us sometimes. And for some people, maybe that is a God-shaped hole. But the longer I have lived with that feeling, the more I think it might just be the loneliness of living in a world as a thing with senses and a nervous system in a complicated world. Who needs to act? I need to act. But pleasure and pain are not the absolute indicators of what we must do in this world. Sometimes we must struggle for another person's freedom or for our own. Sometimes our own nourishment, our own food, comes at the expense of someone's pain or poor living conditions. It's no wonder that we experience this loneliness, fear, frustration, anger. Because we need meaning, we look for meaning. But that dream of living in harmony may seem really far away, or it may be really far away. And we can live covering up those feelings, drowning them, doing as much as we can to not look at them, smothering that part of us which yearns to draw a free breath. We may struggle with anxiety or fear, with pressure or addiction. Or we can allow those feelings some air. We'll return to Lao Tse. If there is to be peace between neighbors, there must be peace in the home. If there is to be peace in the home, there must be peace in the heart. One thing I've practiced on retreat, which you might love, is practicing walking upon the earth. And with each step, envisioning the earth supporting me with kindness, encouraging me. And I was thinking of inviting us to walk around the sanctuary. It's not very practical with all the things that we're living with right now, all of the structures that we need to keep us safe. But if you're at home, maybe you would like to do that, do a little practice. And if you're here in the sanctuary, maybe we can just picture ourselves taking steps or walking, because that's also very powerful. We can take a step and we can notice. We can be thankful for the earth holding us up. We can notice, how do our steps land? Do we land with determination or force or pushing? Is the earth just yielding to our steps, our need to get things done, need to go somewhere? Is the earth our springboard? Or can we be thankful in each step? Thank you, earth, for holding me up. There she is. And we're taking time in that moment to notice an important relationship between our feet and the earth. Thank you for going on that journey. This kind of walking or journeying, I believe, is part of what Thich Nhat Hanh means by interbeing. He said in 2019 in Plum Village, where he spent much time in his later years, that joy can be born from this kind of awareness. And I like that our steps, and just noticing our steps and noticing where we walk, and that we walk on something that supports us, that could bring us joy. Thich Nhat Hanh recommends 4 lines that he was taught when he was a young monk. The first being, waking up this morning, I smile. The second, I have 24 hours to live. The third, I vow to live them fully. And the fourth, to learn to look at people only with eyes of compassion and love. This is one thing when we think of our sources in Unitarian Universalism. This is one thing that I get from Buddhism, the sense of practice, right? That everything, every day is a new practice. And also the sense of gratitude for what is without having to change it. Now, if we move to another source from Christian spiritual practice, I think some of the Christian spiritual practices teach us not to be afraid of joy. If we think of singing and praise, ecstatic dance, praise dancing, raising our hands in worship, and I guess that's also a Sufi practice, the ecstatic dance. But these moments of over-the-top joy, togetherness, unity, even a kind of ecstasy. What would it be like to seek and to give in to ecstasy on a regular basis? And when I think of ecstasy, I think of a sense pleasure that we notice as pleasure. It's not just an escape, where we're sort of like, oh, I'm going to distract myself with this really intense thing so I don't have to think about this other thing. But a saying, and it's not either a saying no to something we don't want to experience, but a saying yes to this thing that's beautiful, that brings our body into tune. Maybe there is a meal that you love and you want to eat slowly and with pleasure. Maybe this is a practice of singing or dancing or exploring. But what brings you bliss? That is a good question. Also within Christian spiritual practice, I think I find a thinking about what accompanies me. So I have a dear friend who can spend about 90% of his time either working from anxiety, just working, because he feels like the dogs are at his heels, or reading or watching something so that he doesn't have to worry about the dogs that are at his heels. Right? So it's like the anxiety is that ever-present thing, and he's basically reacting to that anxiety in one way or another. And I can really relate to that. Right? But if that is the accompanying thing that follows us through each day, that's really good to know, just to notice. What do we want to be that thread that follows us? God or breath or work or family? What is the through line for us? What do we want it to be, and how do we touch in with it when it's important? I have a friend who is a kid whose parent is very sick. We've just found out. And Christianity gives us some automatic, something to hold on to for that. Like, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Right, and that might not be the thing that we go back to, but that sense of accompaniment, thinking about how we're going to accompany this kid. What is good for her to know? What is too much? Where will we see her sense of stability threatened? How can we build up extra support? This is going to be a spiritual practice, preparing a child and ourselves for this idea, brought right to our doorstep, that what we love, who we love, is a mortal person. So maybe for some of us, we would bring in a prayer practice to that, remembering our connectedness to that greater love. And that spirit of prayer, asking for what is needed, being humble, just opening ourselves up to answers, reaching out for a hand to hold. But maybe your practice would be setting up time with this person, knowing what you know, bringing this person breakfast every day, every week, so that you would have some sacred time with them. Another of our UU sources, humanism, I think also invites us into ethical practice. It's humanism itself asking, how does this affect what's living around us? How does this affect who's real? And I see the entire ecosystem as part of that, not just humans. And I think that humanism is present in the healthiest forms of so many faiths. But where humans are asking, oh my gosh, this is a really bad thing, how can I step in? What is mine to do? That ethical practice. So maybe that is an intentional spiritual practice for you, noticing in a situation, what is it that I'm called to here? And also remembering that doing is not necessarily the same as accompanying. Thich Nhat Hanh, which I love, this is within Buddhism and also within Hinduism. He often reminds us to follow our nature, which I love because within that, he's also making a claim about what our nature is, right? That our nature is worthy and good. That our nature is kind and shining, that our nature is connected and dependent and interdependent. And I really like this view because that means that our life project is basically brushing away things that get in the way of ourself shining and connecting. Uncovering our natural state, our natural care, and letting the things rest, which pull us away from presence, from connection to our own core. And sometimes that's so hard when we're rushing, when things are pulling at us and asking for a total shift of gears, change of mindset all the time, overlapping, interrupting. But to remember in those moments that our core nature is enlightenment, thriving, peace, being affected by others and affecting others, care. I like that from the song, Liturgies of Care, right? We act out liturgies of care. Letting go of what dulls our natural shine. A while ago when I was in divinity school, I was actually going further than my parents had gone in terms of education. And I realized that all kinds of thoughts could come up in a new place. We want to tell a story around the events that happen to us, the things we find ourselves in for survival. We want to tell this story to keep ourselves sharp, to keep ourselves aware of danger. And with mindfulness, we can realize that the mind can create a persistent story or set of stories just to tether us, to give us comfort. Oh, I'm enough, I'm not enough. Oh, I'm definitely belong here, I don't belong here. Whatever those stories look like, whatever those dichotomies look like for you, if we're caught in that sense of striving or shame, feeling we're not good enough, a powerful kind of self-care can be letting be. Just letting the moment be what it is, right? Letting those stories rest. Just allowing some space without spinning. I belong, I don't belong, I'm enough, I'm not enough, I need to get better. Whatever your particular stories might sound like. It's so funny, I think, how the theme this month at church is reimagining the other, right? And it's so funny how sometimes the other is right inside of us, that we don't always recognize who we are, who's here, who this being is, what this body needs. When we're tired, or when the work that we've been dreading is actually very energizing and we like it, Another thing that we might think of as the other is some unattainable achievement or thing that we want to do, which is already really present within us as a seed. Right? We already contain the seeds of that thing. You already are that thing. Is that a message that you need this morning, that you already are? Because you are. You've already got it right there. If you're thinking about a new spiritual practice or enjoying one already, I just want to remind you that as you use, we don't have to do this on our own. Right? We can form a group. We can join an existing group. We're in the company of other seekers, which is a beautiful thing. I love that because I think it speaks to the word from our second reading, interbeing, which Thich Nhat Hanh created to describe our interconnected selves, our interdependence. Early in his life, Thich Nhat Hanh found balance after great grief, great sorrow, through walking his people across Vietnam, back to their homes after atrocities of war. Walking as a group, walking with purpose, walking with comrades, holding grief and pain and eventually hope. In the world at this time, we are in a narrow place, facing difficult choices. And we can meet that by narrowing ourselves, by pushing and forcing, or by broadening our view. We can move forward with subtle forcing or with subtle gentleness, or maybe stubborn gentleness is what's called for. Because I don't think we save the world by forcing, but by simplifying, by becoming simpler and clearer about what we really need. So I'll return to the call for a Sabbath. We who have lost our sense and our senses, our touch, our smell, our vision of who we are, we who frantically force and press all things without rest for body or spirit, hurting our earth, injuring ourselves, we call a halt. That is the question I invite into this space this morning. What does your Sabbath look like? What does your Sabbath look like? Thank you, friends.
As we extinguish the chalice, please join me in the words that are printed in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
What if the opposite of I am not enough is not I am enough, but I am? Thich Nhat Hanh suggested that on our in-breath we could breathe, I have arrived, and on our out-breath we could breathe, I am home. I invite us into home wherever we are, into knowing this being, this body, well, knowing its needs. Let us declare a Sabbath, a space of quiet, for simply being and letting be, for recovering great forgotten truths, for learning how to live again. Amen and blessed be.
Thank you so much for watching our service today. We're glad you're part of our online community, where we welcome people who are diverse in faith, ethnicity, history, as well as gender identity and sexual orientation. There are many different ways you can get involved in our community. One you can do right now is by clicking like below or subscribing to our channel. If you're interested in joining our congregation, please email us at membership@firstgu.org. Thanks so much for joining us.